I inherited my grandfather's beautiful lakeside house, a place filled with cherished memories and new possibilities. My fiancée Jessica and I had been together for 3 years and engaged for 8 wonderful months, excitedly planning our future. But there was always one dark cloud hanging over our relationship. Her parents never approved of me. They constantly compared me to her wealthy ex-boyfriend Ryan, making their preference painfully clear. I never imagined their disapproval would escalate into something that would threaten everything we built together. Before I share how my in-laws tried to destroy my relationship, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever dealt with difficult family members. I met Jessica at my college roommate's birthday party 3 years ago. She walked in wearing a simple blue dress, her warm smile immediately catching my attention. I felt drawn to her natural confidence and the way she listened intently to everyone she spoke with. When our mutual friend introduced us, I knew within minutes that she was special. Her intelligence, compassion, and quick wit left me hoping to see her again. You should ask for her number. My roommate nudged me as the party was winding down. I gathered my courage and approached Jessica. I really enjoyed talking with you tonight. Would you want to grab coffee sometime? Her eyes lit up. I was hoping you would ask. I would love that. Our first date was at a local art exhibition featuring emerging artists. We spent hours wandering through the gallery, discussing our interpretations of each piece and sharing stories about our lives. Jessica told me she worked as a pediatric nurse at the children's hospital downtown. The way she talked about her young patients revealed her deep compassion and dedication to helping others. Those kids face such difficult challenges, she explained. Being there for them and their families during those moments is the most rewarding thing I could imagine doing. I shared my work as an architect, my passion for designing spaces that brought comfort and inspiration to people. We discovered a shared love of travel classic films and Saturday morning farmers markets. The connection between us felt effortless and genuine. Our relationship progressed naturally after that. Weekend hikes led to cozy dinners at my apartment, where I would cook while she told stories about her day. Holidays were spent meeting each other's friends, creating new traditions together. By our 1-year anniversary, we had fallen into a comfortable rhythm that felt like we had known each other for decades. The first warning sign came when Jessica mentioned meeting her parents. She seemed unusually nervous about it, fidgeting with her napkin over dinner. My parents can be a bit particular, she warned. Especially my dad. Just be yourself, but maybe don't mention that your firm is still growing. I laughed it off at the time, thinking she was just being cautious. Every parent is protective of their daughter. I'm sure it will be fine. The dinner at their upscale home in the prestigious Lakewood Heights neighborhood quickly proved me wrong. Walter Anderson, a retired investment banker, greeted me with a firm handshake and calculating eyes that seemed to be assessing my net worth rather than my character. Diana Anderson, a former beauty pageant contestant, who had transitioned into chairing various charity boards, offered a practiced smile that never reached her eyes. Their sprawling colonial home was immaculately decorated, filled with expensive art and family photos, showcasing their country club memberships and exotic vacations. I felt immediately out of place despite wearing my best suit. So, Kendall, Walter began after we were seated for dinner. Jessica tells us you work at an architecture firm. Associate level is it? I'm actually a project manager now, I replied. We specialize in sustainable commercial designs. Interesting, he said, his tone suggesting otherwise. Not much money in the green building trend, is there? Seems like a passing fad to me. Diana chimed in before I could respond. Walter's college friend Thomas has a son in architecture. He works for that prestigious firm downtown. What was it called? Dear Henley and Associates, Walter supplied. They handle all the major projects for the city, multi-million-dollar contracts. Throughout dinner, they continued this pattern, asking questions about my background. My parents both deceased, my education, state university on scholarship, and my future plans, all while making subtle comparisons to unnamed others who had chosen more lucrative or prestigious paths. Jessica squeezed my hand under the table, periodically shooting me apologetic glances. She attempted to redirect the conversation several times, highlighting projects I was proud of or sharing stories about our relationship, but her parents skillfully steered it back to their preferred topics. After we left, Jessica apologized profusely. They were much worse than usual tonight. I am so sorry. It was pretty obvious they did not approve of me, I admitted. They are just protective, she said. the phrase I would hear countless times over the years. Once they get to know you better, they will see what I see in you. A few weeks later, Jessica finally revealed the full picture. We were walking through the park when she suddenly stopped and turned to me. "There is something I should have told you before you met my parents," she said, her voice tight with anxiety. "I dated someone for 5 years before you, someone named Ryan Thompson. His family and mine have been friends for generations. Our fathers were fraternity brothers. Our mothers served on the same charity boards." "That is not unusual," I said, confused by her nervousness. "Everyone has exes. It is complicated because my parents adored Ryan. His family owns Thompson Financial Group. They are practically local royalty." She looked away. "We broke up because he was controlling and emotionally unavailable, but my parents never accepted that as a valid reason. They still think we will end up together eventually." "That explains the cold reception," I said, pieces falling into place. "The worst part is that Ryan is still in our social circle. He shows up at family events. My parents golf with his parents every weekend, and they constantly update me on his accomplishments." She took my hands. "I want you to know that I have absolutely no interest in getting back together with him. That chapter is completely closed for me." I believed her completely. Jessica had always been honest and straightforward with me. Her integrity was one of the qualities I admired most about her. "We will just have to show your parents over time that what we have is real," I assured her. Little did I know how challenging that would prove to be. Over the next year, we navigated uncomfortable family gatherings, where Ryan would mysteriously appear, endured subtle digs about my career prospects compared to his, and watched as Diana would conveniently seat Jessica and Ryan together at prospects events. Jessica always defended me and made her choice clear, but she also made excuses for her parents' behavior. "They are from a different generation," she would say. "This is just how things work in their social circle." After 2 years together, I knew without doubt that Jessica was the woman I wanted to spend my life with. I planned a special evening at Riverside, the restaurant, where we had celebrated our first anniversary. After a perfect meal, I got down on one knee beside our table. "Jessica, you have brought more joy, laughter, and love into my life than I ever thought possible. Would you do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my wife?" Her eyes filled with tears as she nodded emphatically. "Yes. Of course, yes." The other diners applauded as I slipped the ring on her finger, a sapphire, surrounded by small diamonds that had taken me 6 months to save for. It was modest compared to what her parents would expect, but Jessica loved its uniqueness and the thought I had put into choosing it. The joy of our engagement lasted until we shared the news with her parents the following weekend. Diana's smile froze when Jessica extended her hand to show the ring. Walter cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Well, this is certainly a surprise," Diana said, her voice tight. "Congratulations," Walter added, raising his glass mechanically. "Rather quick decision, is it not?" "We have been together for 2 years. Jessica reminded them, her happiness dimming visibly. "Of course," dear Diana patted her hand. "We just want you to be certain. Marriage is such a serious commitment." The subtle undermining continued, as Diana immediately took over wedding planning, ignoring Jessica's preferences for a smaller, more intimate ceremony, in favor of an elaborate society event. She dismissed the venues we liked as quaint but insufficient, and pushed for country club locations well beyond our budget. After one particularly frustrating planning session, Walter asked me to join him in his study for a man-to-man conversation. He poured 2 glasses of expensive scotch and settled behind his massive desk. "Kendall, I respect that Jessica has chosen you," he began, though his tone suggested otherwise. "But I would be remiss as a father if I did not protect my daughter's interests. I think a prenuptial agreement is essential given the disparities in your financial situations." "Sir, I have no interest in Jessica's money," I responded, trying to keep my voice level. "Everyone says that until divorce becomes a reality," he replied coldly. "Jessica stands to inherit substantial assets eventually. The Anderson family name carries significant weight in this community. We need to ensure that is protected." I left feeling insulted and angry, but when I told Jessica about the conversation, she was caught in an impossible position, torn between defending me and respecting her father. "He means well," she said weakly. "Maybe we should consider it if it gives them peace of mind." That conversation created the first real friction in our relationship. I felt Jessica should have taken a stronger stand, while she felt trapped between loyalty to her family and to me. It was a dynamic that would only worsen over time. My grandfather Edward was the man who raised me, after my parents died in a car accident when I was 12. His modest home became my safe haven, and his unconditional love helped me navigate the darkest period of my life. He worked as a high school history teacher, instilling in me a love of learning and the value of integrity over material success. "It is not what you own that defines you, Kendall," he would tell me. "It is what you build and who you help along the way." When he passed away at 87, the loss hit me like a physical blow. Jessica was genuinely supportive during this time, attending the funeral with me and helping sort through his belongings. She held me through nights when grief felt overwhelming and listened patiently as I shared memories of the man who had shaped me. A month after his passing, I received a call from his attorney. "Your grandfather has left you his house and property at Cedar Lake," the lawyer explained, "along with some modest savings and personal effects." I was stunned. Grandpa had mentioned the lake house occasionally, but I had no idea he still owned it. He had purchased it in the 1970s as a vacation home, but had rented it out for decades. I had assumed he had sold it years ago. When we drove out to see the property, I was overwhelmed. The 4-bedroom house sat on 3 acres of lakefront land with majestic oak trees and a private dock. Though it needed some updating, the structure was solid and the location breathtaking. A local realtor casually mentioned properties in the area were selling for well over $1 million due to limited lakefront availability. "Your grandfather was quite shrewd," the attorney explained. "He purchased this when the area was undeveloped. The value has increased nearly 20-fold since then. For the first time in my life, I found myself in possession of a significant asset." The house represented not just financial security, but a physical connection to my grandfather. I could envision raising a family there, creating the kind of warm, loving home he had provided for me. "We could live here after the wedding," I suggested to Jessica as we walked along the shoreline. "Renovate it to make it our own, but keep its character." "It is beautiful," she agreed, squeezing my hand. "I can see why your grandfather loved it." The news of my inheritance triggered a remarkable transformation in Walter and Diana's attitude toward me. Suddenly, I received invitations to join Walter for golf. Diana began calling me directly rather than always speaking through Jessica. "Kendall, we would love to see this lake house we have been hearing about," Diana said during one such call. "Perhaps we could have a family gathering there next weekend." When they visited, Walter walked the property line, asking detailed questions about zoning, property taxes, and potential development opportunities. Diana toured the house, making comments about how she would completely reimagine each space. "This dining room could actually be quite lovely with the right furniture," she said, waving dismissively at my grandfather's cherished oak table. "I know an excellent interior designer who could help you maximize the potential here. The house has good bones." Walter conceded a phrase I would learn was his highest form of praise. "With the right investments, you could increase the value substantially." After they left, Jessica seemed relieved. "See, they are warming up to you. The house has impressed them." "They seem more impressed with the property than with me," I pointed out. "Your mom referred to me as your meal ticket when she thought I could not hear her." Jessica flushed. "She did not mean it that way. They are just pleased to see you have security to offer." The following month, I had to attend an architectural conference in Chicago. It was an important professional opportunity that could lead to new clients and projects for our firm. Jessica could not join me due to her hospital schedule. On my second day there, I ran into Sarah, an old college friend, who now worked for a Chicago-based architecture firm. We grabbed coffee to catch up, sharing news about mutual friends and professional developments. The conversation was completely innocuous, the kind of networking that happens at every conference. I returned to my hotel room that evening to find 6 missed calls from Jessica. When I called back, her voice was tight with anger and hurt. "Were you planning to tell me about your girlfriend in Chicago?" she demanded without preamble. "What are you talking about?" I asked, genuinely confused. "The woman you were having an intimate lunch with today. Dark hair, red dress. Looked very cozy from the photos." My stomach dropped as I realized someone must have seen me with Sarah and completely misinterpreted the situation. That was Sarah Martinez from college. We happened to be at the same conference and grabbed coffee to catch up. She is married with 2 kids, Jessica. "That is not what my parents heard," Jessica responded. "They received photos from someone they know in Chicago who saw you." They said you were laughing, touching hands, looking very much like a couple. I was floored by the accusation and the fact that someone had taken photos of me and sent them to the Andersons. Who even does that? Who sees someone they barely know and decides to take surveillance photos to send to their future in-laws? That is not the point, Jessica insisted. The point is, you were with another woman and did not tell me about it, because there was nothing to tell. Sarah is a professional colleague and old friend. We had coffee in the middle of a busy cafe. There was absolutely nothing romantic about it. The conversation went in circles until Jessica finally said she needed time to think. The trust between us had been damaged by a completely innocent interaction. When I returned home the next day, Jessica was waiting at my apartment. We talked for hours, with me explaining the exact nature of my relationship with Sarah and even offering to call her husband to confirm. Eventually, Jessica accepted the truth, but the incident had created a new tension between us. What made it worse was discovering that her parents had orchestrated a dinner with Jessica to discuss the situation while I was still away. They had invited Ryan to join them, supposedly as moral support for Jessica. "They set you up," I said, feeling a fresh wave of anger. "They saw an opportunity to push you back toward Ryan and took it." It was not like that Jessica insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. "They were just trying to help me sort through my feelings. By having your ex-boyfriend there, offering a shoulder to cry on." "Did Ryan happen to mention how coincidental it was that your parents called him?" Right after they got those photos, Jessica looked away. "He did say something about your character finally being revealed." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Jessica, your parents actively tried to break us up by twisting an innocent interaction into something scandalous. Then they immediately called your ex-boyfriend to swoop in. How can you not see the manipulation here?" "They made a mistake," she said quietly. "They thought they were protecting me." This pattern of her parents interfering and Jessica making excuses was creating a widening gap between us. I loved her deeply, but I was beginning to wonder if she would ever fully stand up to her parents, or if I would always be fighting this battle alone. The real crisis began on a Tuesday evening, when Walter called me directly, something he rarely did unless he wanted something significant. "Kendall, we need to discuss a family matter," he said without preamble. "Diana and I have experienced some temporary financial setbacks due to a market downturn. Our investment in the Westlake development has underperformed dramatically." "I am sorry to hear that," I replied cautiously, wondering why he was sharing this with me rather than Jessica. "We need to liquidate some assets, including our house," he continued. "Unfortunately, the real estate market is unfavorable right now for sellers in our neighborhood." I waited, sensing there was more coming. "Given the circumstances, we have been considering our options. Your lake house is quite spacious with 4 bedrooms, and largely sitting empty while you live in your apartment. It would make sense for us to move in there temporarily just for a year or two until the market recovers." The request was so audacious that for a moment I thought I had misheard him. "Move into my grandfather's house," I clarified. "Yes, it is the practical solution. You and Jessica could continue living in your apartment until the wedding, or if you preferred to be at the lake house too, there would certainly be room for everyone." He presented this not as a request, but as a decision already made, his tone suggesting I should be grateful for the opportunity to help them. Walter, Jessica, and I were planning to move into the lake house after our wedding. "It needs renovations before then." "We would be happy to oversee those renovations," he replied smoothly. "Diana has excellent taste, as you know." "I appreciate you thinking of me," I said carefully, "but the house is special to me because of my connection to my grandfather. I was looking forward to making it a home for Jessica and me. If you need financial assistance during this time, I would be happy to help in other ways." There was a long pause before Walter responded, his voice noticeably colder. "I see. Well, I had hoped you would be more understanding of family needs. Diana and I have already mentioned this arrangement to several friends who thought it was a generous offer on your part. You told people you were moving into my house before asking me. We assumed you would want to help family in a time of need, especially given how welcoming we have been to you despite your unconventional background." The thinly veiled insult was the final straw. "I am sorry about your financial situation, Walter, but my answer is no. The house is not available. This will change things, Kendall," he said ominously before hanging up. I immediately called Jessica to explain the conversation, hoping she would understand my position. She arrived at my apartment an hour later, clearly upset. How could you speak to my father that way? She demanded. They are in a financial crisis, and you refuse to help them. Jessica, they wanted to move into my grandfather's house and suggested we live somewhere else. This is our future home we are talking about. It would only be temporary, she insisted. They have lost a lot of money. They might have to sell their house at a massive loss. That is not what your father told me. He talked about staying for years, not months. And why did they tell their friends about this arrangement before even asking me? She looked away. They were probably just being optimistic. Over the next few days, the situation escalated dramatically. The Andersons called a family meeting, including Jessica's married brother Thomas and her younger sister Catherine. Jessica attended without me, returning in tears. They have already accepted an offer on their house, she told me. The closing is in 45 days. They have nowhere to go, Kendall. My dad says his business reputation will be destroyed if they have to rent some small apartment after selling their home. What about their vacation house in Hilton Head? I asked. Could not they stay there? Jessica looked startled. How do you know about that property? Your brother Thomas mentioned it last Christmas. He talked about the family gathering there every summer. That is different, she stammered. That house is too far from their social connections. Dad needs to be here for business relationships, and Mom has all her charity work. I took her hands in mine. Jessica, something does not add up. If they are in such financial trouble, why not sell the vacation home instead of their primary residence? And why was this the first time you mentioned they had already sold their house? She pulled her hands away. You are being paranoid. They are my parents, Kendall. They need help. I think they are manipulating you, I said gently. And I think they are not being honest about their financial situation. The conversation devolved from there, with Jessica becoming increasingly emotional. Finally, she stood up and delivered an ultimatum that felt like it came straight from Walter himself. If you will not help my family in their time of need, I do not think we should get married. Family has to come first, Kendall. I stared at her in disbelief. So, your parents matter more than our future together, more than the life we have been planning. That is not what I said, she cried. I just need you to do this one thing. Is it really so much to ask? It is not just one thing, Jessica. It is the latest in a pattern where your parents interfere in our relationship and you let them. They have undermined me from day one, tried to break us up with false accusations, actively worked to get you back with Ryan. And now they want to take over the one meaningful thing my grandfather left me. So your answer is still no, she asked, tears streaming down her face. I took a deep breath, suddenly seeing with perfect clarity what our future would look like if I gave in now. Yes, my answer is still no. And if you cannot understand why this matters to me, then maybe you are right. Maybe we should not get married. Her face crumpled. Are you breaking our engagement? The weight of the moment pressed down on me. I loved Jessica deeply, but I could suddenly see the road ahead with painful clarity. A lifetime of manipulations, ultimatums, and compromises that would slowly erode my self-respect. Yes, I said quietly, the word feeling like a stone in my throat. I cannot marry someone who does not put our relationship first. Who does not see how her parents are manipulating both of us? Jessica stared at me in shock. You cannot mean that. I do mean it. I love you, Jessica, but I cannot build a life with you if your parents will always come between us. I gently took her hand and placed her engagement ring in her palm. I think you should go now. We both need some space to think. She looked down at the ring, then back at me, her expression shifting from shock to anger. You will regret this. No one else will ever love you the way I do. After she left, I sat alone in my apartment, feeling like my world had collapsed. Had I made a terrible mistake? Was I throwing away the best relationship of my life over a house and my pride? The weeks after our breakup were some of the most difficult of my life. Jessica alternated between angry texts accusing me of betrayal and tearful voicemails begging me to reconsider. I maintained my distance, knowing that any contact would only prolong the pain for both of us. The Andersons wasted no time in launching what could only be described as a smear campaign among our mutual friends. Stories circulated about how I had abandoned Jessica when her family needed help, twisted versions of events that painted me as selfish and uncaring. Some friends took sides immediately, while others reached out to hear my perspective. I threw myself into work and began spending weekends at the lake house, focusing on renovation projects my grandfather had planned but never completed. There was something therapeutic about sanding old floors and repairing the dock physical labor that left me too exhausted to dwell on my loss. A month after our breakup, I was surprised by a knock on the door of the lake house. Jessica's younger brother Jacob stood on the porch looking uncomfortable. "Can we talk?" he asked. I invited him in, curious about his unexpected visit. Jacob had always been the quietest member of the Anderson family, observing more than participating in family dynamics. "I owe you an apology," he began, after declining my offer of coffee. "I should have spoken up at that family meeting, but I did not have the courage." Spoken up about what? He sighed heavily. "My parents lied about the extent of their financial troubles. Dad lost some money in that development project, but nothing close to what they claimed. They could easily have kept their house if they wanted to." "Then why sell it?" I asked, confused. "Because they saw an opportunity," he explained. "They never liked the idea of you and Jessica living in this house away from their influence. Mom had been complaining for months about how Jessica was becoming too independent. When they heard about your inheritance, they decided it would be better if they controlled this property." His revelation confirmed what I had suspected, but still shocked me. "What about their house sale?" "Jessica told me they had already accepted an offer." Jacob looked down. "They had a verbal offer, but no signed contract. They could have backed out any time." "And the vacation house in Hilton Head?" "They have no intention of selling it. Mom is actually renovating the kitchen there right now." "Does Jessica know all this?" I tried to tell her last week, but she would not listen. "She has been so manipulated by them her entire life that she cannot see it." He met my eyes directly. "They have been working with Ryan this whole time, you know, planning to get them back together. Ryan was at our house the day after you broke up." This final piece of information should have hurt, but instead it brought clarity. The pattern had been there all along. I just had not wanted to see how deliberate and coordinated their efforts had been. Jacob left after extracting a promise that I would not tell his parents about his visit. "I still have to live with them," he explained with a grimace. 2 weeks later, Jessica contacted me, asking to meet at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown. Against my better judgment, I agreed. She looked tired, her usual polished appearance slightly dimmed. We ordered our drinks and sat at a corner table far from other patrons. "I owe you an apology," she began, surprising me. "I have been doing a lot of thinking, and I realized some things about myself and my relationship with my parents." She explained that after our breakup she had moved temporarily into her parents' new condo, significantly smaller than their previous home, but hardly the financial disaster they had claimed. Ryan had indeed been a constant presence, invited to dinners and family events with increasing frequency. "It was like watching a replay of our breakup from college," she said quietly. "They kept pushing us together, ignoring my objections. Ryan kept talking about how we were meant to be together, how he could take care of me better than you ever could." "What happened?" I asked, sensing there was more to the story. "He proposed," she said simply, "right in front of my parents at their anniversary dinner. He had their blessing, of course. Had the ring for weeks, apparently." And I prompted when she fell silent. I said no. "I finally saw what you had been trying to tell me all along. How they manipulate and control using emotional blackmail and guilt. How they never respected my choices." She looked up at me, her eyes clear and determined in a way I had rarely seen before. I moved out the next day. "I am staying with my friend Lisa until I figure out my next steps." "I am proud of you, Jessica," I said sincerely. "Standing up to your parents takes real courage." "Would you consider giving us another chance?" she asked directly. "Things would be different now. I see everything clearly." I took a moment to really consider her question. "I care about you, Jessica. A part of me always will. But I think we both need time to grow independently. You need to establish boundaries with your family on your own terms, not because of a relationship with me." She nodded slowly, accepting my answer with grace I had not expected. "I understand. I hope someday we might find our way back to each other, but if not, I want you to know that you taught me something valuable about standing up for myself, about having boundaries." We parted with a brief hug and genuine good wishes. As I walked back to my car, I felt a weight lifting that I had not even realized I was carrying. The following months brought unexpected growth and change. I began seeing a therapist to address patterns of codependency that had contributed to the dynamics with Jessica. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my relationship and expanded my social circle through local volunteer work. The lake house renovations progressed steadily, each improvement honoring my grandfather's vision while adding my own touches. I created a home that reflected my values and personality, something I realized I had been compromising too often in my relationship with Jessica. I focused on advancing my career, taking on challenging projects that stretched my abilities and built my professional reputation. 6 months after the breakup, my firm made me a partner, recognizing my contributions and dedication. Most importantly, I learned to establish clear boundaries in all my relationships, to recognize red flags early, and to trust my instincts when something felt wrong. I discovered that being alone was far preferable to being with someone who could not fully choose me over outside influences. Almost a year after our breakup, I met someone new, a children's book illustrator named Megan, who shared my love of architecture and the outdoors. Our relationship developed naturally without drama or external pressures. The first time she visited the lake house, she spent hours examining my grandfather's book collection and asking questions about the man who had meant so much to me. "He sounds like someone I would have liked to know," she said, running her fingers along the spines of his history books. "He would have liked you," I replied, realizing with certainty that it was true. Life sometimes forces us to make painful choices that turn out to be necessary for growth. Standing up for myself was not selfish. It was essential for my well-being and self-respect. The experience taught me that the right people will respect your boundaries, and that sometimes losing someone is the only way to find yourself. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice that turned out to be the right one in the end? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life stories about navigating difficult relationships. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember that protecting your boundaries is not just a right, but a responsibility to yourself. Wishing you the courage to stand firm in your own truth, whatever challenges you might be facing.